Hey everyone, so in today's video we are going to be learning how to smooth talk your way out of a psychiatric hospital admission. I am going to be sharing my story about that, but actually the point of this video is going to be more about how it's actually not a good idea, and so stick around to the end to find out why that is. So once upon a time ago, this is actually part of a larger story of my hospitalization back in 2016, but I'm going to pick it up around the place where police showed up to take me to the hospital in the middle of the night from my mom's house. They showed up middle of the night and said, "You have to come with us. You're coming to the hospital." So very, very reluctantly, I said, "Fine, if I must." And what kind of happened is we got to the hospital and I eventually saw a psychiatrist, and I did my very, very best to present as well and composed and articulate and, competent and together as I possibly could. This is not how I was actually doing on the inside. I was kind of a mess in the midst of a very deep psychotic episode, but I was able to kind of pretend my way into tricking the psychiatrist to thinking that I was really stable and in a good frame of mind. And I was using a lot of kind of manipulative behavior in terms of being like, I have no idea why my psychiatrist asked the police to take me here. I have no idea what behaviors I was exhibiting. I have no idea, what made them think that, because I feel really good and I feel really stable. And so, kind of putting on this demeanor and facade eventually kind of led the psychiatrist in the hospital to be like, "Well, I don't really know why you're here either." And it eventually ended up with him being like, "I'm sorry this happened and you can go home." When this happened, I was quite pleased with myself because, hey, cool, I just smooth talked my way out of a psychiatric hospital admission, which I have not loved in the past. I well documented, I've experienced traumas from these sorts of things. And so I was pretty pleased with myself that I got out of another hospital stay. But, that didn't really address any of the problems that I was experiencing. I was still in the midst of a pretty intense psychotic episode. And so it inevitably got worse. And I became more unstable, and I ended up, I don't even know why, but I thought it was a good idea to go back to my psychiatrist's office the next morning and just kind of camp out in my car. And so one of his nurses recognized me in my car and let him know. And so he came out and was like, "Oh, can you come talk to me in my office, Lauren?" And by that point, he had already called the cops on me again, and they were on their way. And so they showed up, put me in handcuffs, quite a traumatic ordeal again, and ended up taking me to the hospital anyway. And this time I was formed by my psychiatrist, so there was no chance for me to smooth talk my way out. So why am I sharing this story about how I smooth talked my way out of a psychiatric hospital admission the first time, not the second time? I think that, I mentioned I've experienced a lot of trauma with hospitals, and I think that people often get stuck in this kind of, hostile engagement between themselves as a patient and the mental health care system. And it creates this really, again, hostile and confrontational, or ultimately just unhelpful dynamic between the patient trying to access help within the hospital system. I fell into this very deeply, and I saw the hospital and the people working at the hospital as my enemy and someone who was trying to lock me up, medicate me into oblivion, and control me in a really negative way. And so that's kind of the narrative that I was experiencing when I made the decision to try to talk my way out of the hospital admission. I think it's really important to try to not fall into this narrative in your own mind and try to see the hospital and the medical system in general as kind of more of a tool to help you on your path to feeling well again and to feeling stable. Another reason it was kind of silly to do this is because I ended up going to the hospital anyway, and all, talking my way out of it the first time really ended up doing was prolong my suffering. I stayed in an unhelped, state and situation for longer than I really needed to. It wasn't a good time, the time in between, I was in a bad place, and it wasn't a good time anyway. But then that time between when I left the hospital and I got sent back to the hospital was a really difficult period and a really difficult to manage, and ultimately it just really didn't serve me to not accept help the first time it was kind of offered. I think also ultimately my own actions created a sense of isolation and feeling alone, and like there was no hope in being helped because I kind of denied myself the opportunity for help and care in the hospital by talking my way out of it. Something else that I've actually learned more recently is that many mental health care providers understand that the hospital is generally a traumatic experience for patients, mental health patients. It's their goal too to keep you out of the hospital. And so I've really learned that being more open and honest with my medical care team and being more receptive, I guess, to accepting care and support has really gone a long way in terms of having the shared goal of creating wellness within myself and staying out of the hospital. There really was no point in kind of talking my way out of these services. I should have just been more upfront and honest and receptive to help in the first place. So that's my story of how I smooth talked my way out of a hospital's admission. And, I think ultimately the moral here is that, it is possible. It is possible to evade a hospital admission like this by talking your way out of it and by kind of, manipulating the people who are trying to care for you into believing that you don't need their services. But I think the point that I'm trying to make here is that it's really only harming yourself if you choose to evade this kind of support and care and services like that. It's just not in your best interest. When I lied to the doctor about, I'm doing really well, I thought I was being very, very clever. But honestly, I think all this really did was prove that that doctor wanted to trust me and wanted to work with me. And so they did. They trusted me and they sent me home because I was telling them that I was well and I didn't need help. I think that that's probably an important thing to focus on as well. They are there to help you. They are there to support you. It is not the situation where they want to just lock you up indefinitely. The ultimate goal here is to increase your wellness and bring you to a place of stability. So I hope you found this video helpful. If you want to see more videos from us, make sure to subscribe. And also, if you're interested in helping support the creation of these videos, please check out the link to our Patreon page. Through Patreon, you also gain access to our online peer support community, where we offer peer support through various means, including weekly peer support groups. So if that's something that interests you, make sure to check that out. But thank you so much for watching, and as always, wishing you and your loved ones good health. We'll see you in the next video. Bye.